Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. Stand out, don't fit in. This is the second half of the interview with Will Polston. If you haven't listened to the first part, tune in to the previous episode, number 33, where Will talked about success, clarity, congruence, values, purpose, and what he calls the North Star. You mentioned earlier about the difference between inspiration and motivation and how it is. One is when you live according to your own values, and one is when you live according to external values by other people. And I wanted to put that in context with goal setting. So, many people set out to achieve a goal not because they want to, but because they feel they have to or they need to. So for me, that goes under the same scope of external values. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, the internal versus external values in terms of setting a goal. Is that a good way to set a goal based on what we feel that we have to do? Or should we only set goals based on our desire, our inner wants, what we really want to be doing?
Yeah, the latter. I've never met anyone that doesn't want to live the best experience that they possibly can. So with that in mind, so you've got to have some presuppositions, and they would be like, who go, I don't want to set goals. Okay, cool. What's the reason you don't want to set goals? And again, normally it's because of past conditioning. So people associate pain with goals because, I set my goals, I never achieve them, and then I feel rubbish and I wish I never did it anyway. So it's okay, cool. So then the clarity we've got to change there is we've got to break a belief. Just because you've done something in the past, the past doesn't equal the future. Or asking a better question, well, what would life be like if you did achieve your goals? Oh, it'd be amazing. Okay, cool. So let's look at what we need to do differently this time to ensure you achieve them versus last time. So yeah, it's very quickly we can get to the root of the problem. But I don't think I've ever met anyone that does. Well, I haven't met anyone. I don't believe it exists. People that don't want to live the best quality of life they possibly can. And the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. Alice asked the Cheshire Cat, which route should I take? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where do you go? I'm paraphrasing this because I'm probably getting it wrong, but it's something on the lines of Alice in Wonderland asks.
It depends where you want to go.
Where you want to go, and then he said, well, I don't know. He goes, well, take any route, it'll get you there. Yeah. Is because once you know, and I do also believe that deep down, everybody knows, right? Everybody knows, because when they say, oh, I don't know what I want. Okay, cool. Tell me what you don't want, right? And they reel off loads of stuff they don't want. So if they know what they don't want, that's a place to start, because we can just go, well, what's the opposite of that? So I don't believe anybody doesn't know. I just believe that they don't have clarity on what it is that they want. So yeah, anytime that anyone tells me I don't know what I do want, okay, well, tell me what you don't want. And they reel off a list and I go, cool, well, what's the opposite of all that stuff? And then all of a sudden, oh my God, that's so simple. But yeah, that's
okay.
It's useful.
But do you think there are people who set out goals which are not really in line with what they want to do, but somehow,
yeah.
And these are the goals that you really need the constant motivation to pursue them, isn't it? Okay. There is one other thing that I wanted to discuss. You mentioned earlier on about language and how you pay attention to it, and also the presupposition. So the topic is NLP, which you have trained extensively. So tell me, how has NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming for those who don't know what NLP stands for, how has it helped you, and what can it do for other people as a method?
I refer to NLP as the art and science of personal excellence. And the reason for that is because you become aware of thinking and have a tool set of how you can influence your thinking, your behavior, your emotional state, arguably behavior, but and arguably thinking, but let's look at those individual things, which gives you control of your life. There's only three things that we truly control ourselves. That's our perceptions, our actions, and our will. NLP gives you the tools to influence those things, like coming back to the whole river and sort of being a log on the river, just floating down the river. So many people just go through life being just drifting through that. They're a creature of their circumstances, Tony Robbins would say. They've just been influenced in certain ways. They do certain things just because that's how they think they do certain things. They've never actually stopped and gone, no, hold on a minute. I'm the creator here. I can decide. I can choose my destiny. I can decide my destiny. I can make those different decisions. And NLP gives you a toolkit to be able to do that for yourself and to be able to do that for other people.
And what about you personally? How can you isolate a couple of examples?
So many, Aggie. So many. I mean, I first learned about NLP when I worked in sales, right? So from the very early stages, I used it, and I'll say open, I used it to manipulate people, right? I got them to do certain things that I wanted them to do, right? And like anything, if it's used well, great. If it's used badly, like electricity, electricity is a wonderful resource. The reason we're communicating now is because of electricity. But if I put electricity in the bath when I'm in it, it's not going to serve me very well, So we've got to be mindful of those things. So yeah, I've used it for loads of things. I mean, obviously now it's like anything. If it's used ethically and morally, it's fantastic. It's like anything. Money's the same with that. Anything you can think of, you can swing those things. So yeah, but way back then it was that. Now. Every day of my life, I'm using it. Every day of my life. So yeah, it's been life changing. It's enabled me to perform at levels that I wouldn't have been able to perform at. It's enabled me to do interventions with clients that they've had challenges for years and years and years that we've been able to overcome in literally minutes. There's so many.
That's great. I'll change the direction a little bit. And we were discussing earlier before we started recording that today, on the day 3 years ago, it was the first time I attended your event, Unlock Your Potential. And as a result of that, the following day I got inspired by you, and I started posting a quote on social media every single day. So it's been 3 years since that. So I wanted to ask about quotes, because I know that you have been doing that for a very long time as well. So what do you find in quoting other people's wisdom? Why do you do it?
I think that words create worlds. And I think that reading a couple of lines or a couple of words can alter someone's life. It can certainly alter someone's day. It can certainly alter someone's state.
Yeah.
And I think that for millennium now, there's been many a wise person that come up with these nuggets of wisdom. And I think they should be shared. Aggie, knowledge is the only thing, or one of the only things, that when you share it, it creates more. If I have a bottle of water and I share some with you, I've got less. If I have food, I share some with you, I've got less. You know, if I got money, I share some with you, I've got less. So, but knowledge, I share it with you, you've got the same as me. You share it again, someone else, and it's one of those things, and those insights. So I think that's one of the reasons. Is those tiny little nuggets of wisdom. And sometimes I read my own quotes, and they come through, and I'm like, and I don't mean the ones that I've said. I mean the ones that we've posted about someone. And there was one that actually went out this morning. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Because I actually don't schedule them anymore. My assistant schedules them. Your problem isn't the problem. Your reaction is the problem. And I was like, oh, that's just brilliant. I was like, that's just brilliant. You know, because it's true in a lot of cases. In all cases.
So what's one quote that you live by? One of the quotes that you post that you really live by it, or your favorite?
There's so many, but one that always stands out for me is successful people do what failures won't. I normally have it on my mouse mat. The mouse mat's in the other room. That stands out to me. There's no such thing as lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness. Life happens for you, not to you. I mean, some days I see stuff. I mean, what was the one that so I just hear things sometimes, or I see certain things. I'm like, that is brilliant, and I just have to write it down. I'll be listening to an audio, but I have to pull my car over and write something down. So I'm like, this is just gold. So yeah, let's. What was the one the other day? And I was like, that is just brilliant.
I do the same thing with collecting. When I see something interesting, I always write it down or screenshot it or something.
Yeah, there are no hard problems, only problems that are hard to a certain level of intelligence. Like, that's just absolute gold. What was another one that recently sort of caught my attention? In the knowing we have a responsibility to do. People fear what they don't understand. Awareness equals ascension. You know, they're just a couple of nuggets recently that I just think are just gold. So yeah, there's some of the recent ones that I come across.
Yeah. For me, I have both learned very much by collecting them and reading them and posting them, and also helping others, because when it's out there, you never know who might, as you said, see it and change their day. If not, maybe not their life, but even their day. That's tremendously important.
Yeah, and I think when that wisdom's distilled down as well, I mean, you can get a life lesson in a sentence. You know, you haven't got to go and study for an hour or read a whole book. Like that, it can be summarized in a handful of words, which is just so powerful.
And very intelligent. It's not easy to do, to distill so much into such a short phrase. I'll change the subject again and discuss something that, again, I know that you are very passionate about, and you teach it on Unlock Your Potential, and that's morning routines. So there is something specific that I want to ask about that, and that's your morning routine. So what does the first 60 minutes of your day look like in terms of routines?
So I have what I call a long morning routine and a short morning routine.
Okay.
But the very first thing that I do is meditate. So 10 minutes meditation. I tend to prefer unguided meditation. So I don't do silent meditation per se, but I will do. So I'll have some sort of sound on. I use a device called a Muse, which is basically a brain wave sensing headband to help measure my brain waves. So that, or I'll listen to something like Brain FM. So I meditate. I then read a page of the Daily Stoic. I know we both have a mutual interest in Stoicism, so I read a page of that. Then sometimes I will, depending on the time that I've got, I will then might read 10 pages, 20 pages of a book. Most days I will read a personal declaration, which is like a form of long form affirmation about sort of how I want my life to be, or how my life is unfolding. Then when I read the Daily Stoic, I also have, I think it's 10 affirmations now, it might be 11 affirmations that I read out loud as well. And then again, most days I'll write out 10 things that I'm grateful for.
Okay.
Exercise. So I prefer to exercise in the morning, so I get some sort of exercise. Finish with a cold shower. Take certain vitamins. So the key vitamins that I take most days are apple cider vinegar, wheatgrass, magnesium, omega oils, iron, and sort of a bit of multivitamin. And what have I forgot? Magnesium. No, that's that. And then I will prepare what I call a must-do list, which is sort of simply 7 things that I must do that day. That's a typical day. Sometimes I'll fold in other stuff, so I might fold in some breathing. So there's certain things that I lean on at certain times. So if I'm finding myself particularly stressed, then I'll introduce sort of some extra Wim Hof breathing. If I'm really tight on time, then I drop some things out. So if I've had like a really late night or something, so I aim at least 6 nights a week to have 7.5 to 8 hours sleep. So like last night, for example, I only had like 5 hours sleep, but I'll only do that once. I won't do that multiple times a week. So then like this morning, I cut my morning routine short. I did a very short version. And then I went out to go to the gym and do everything, come back, shower, get changed, do a bit of work. And then obviously we jumped on. So, but yeah, that's...
So when you do the short version routine, which are the elements that are non-negotiable?
Well, non-negotiables, meditation.
Yeah,
10-minute meditation. And typically reading the Daily Stoic. Okay. They for me are like the absolute non-negotiables. Sometimes I then factor other stuff in later in the day. So today I didn't actually read, but I will read at some point today. I will do my I'll do my gratitude later in the day today. Just because obviously the current situation with coronavirus that we're in right now is that I keep my journal downstairs, whereas I used to have it next to my bed, and like so it doesn't necessarily work perfectly. And I'm a real habits guy. Like for me, it sounds crazy, I try not to think, and the way that I don't think is by having a habit for stuff. So if something falls out of sync, like I could have done something for a year, but if it falls off my radar because it's not obvious to me, then I don't do it. You know, like I have to keep my vitamins on. So even like when I get in the shower, I brush my teeth in the shower. But when I brush my teeth, I turn the shower cold. So the brushing my teeth is the trigger. When I get out the shower, my vitamins are on the windowsill in the bathroom as the trigger. Most people will put them in the cupboard, right? Because then it looks pretty. Whereas I'm like, it's more important that I take them because if they're in the cupboard and I'm tired, which most of us are when we wake up in the morning. I'm not thinking, like my mind's somewhere else. Like, weirdly, the shower for me is a really good thinking time. I have some of my best ideas in the shower. So I do that.
Fantastic. Many of what you said are I've picked up over the years from you, and I'm very happy to hear that the elements are same. Same here.
Well, I'm curious to you. So things that you've picked up from me over the years and that you've implemented in, what are one or two of the things that you've found most beneficial that you've introduced, and why?
Since we've been talking about the routines, the morning routines, that is certainly one of them. Because 3 years ago or 3.5 years ago, I didn't have any morning routines, no deliberate morning routines anyway. I used to have a routine, but it was not structured and it was not serving me either. I would just do things out of habit. And then I realized that there are elements which, once I started doing, I could feel the difference. I could feel better. I had more energy. And that on its own was a very great reason for me to carry on doing it. So the morning routine for sure. And meditation, gratitude, affirmations, vitamins, exercise, the daily stoic, pretty much everything that you said, over time I have incorporated into my morning. And now it is, I don't think about it really, it just happens. As years ago when I had a completely different morning schedule, I didn't think about it, I was just habitually going into it. But it's day and night, the difference between the two routines. And as a result, the day, because as Tim Ferriss says, if you win the morning, you win the day.
Win the day. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And or I think Jim Rohn said that you either run the day or the day runs you. So it's up to you really. And the morning, the first hour or so, it's where you really will set the foundation for how your day is going to go. Will you be chasing it, or will you be holding the reins and guiding your day as you want? So brilliant. Will, I have also some quick fire questions to ask you. That doesn't mean that I'm expecting a 3-second answer, but it's just some questions without some...
Is there a competition? Do I win something for answering them quicker? If there is, then I'll answer quicker.
No, actually, on the contrary, I would rather if you don't, but it's up to you, however you want to answer that. So the first thing I always start with that, what does personal development mean to you?
Growth. I'm not intentionally asking, but that's what it means. You know, it's growth and growth and yeah, like for me, fulfillment is a journey. So growth, fulfillment, and joy. Yeah.
When just curious, when did you discover the term personal development in your life? Was it as a teenager, or was it when you had started?
No, when I first read The Secret, I mean, was when I like consciously reading the book and stuff. But I suppose I've always been driven. You know, like I remember at school at 15. 16, I won like the Millionaire Before 30 prize at prom and all that stuff. So people have known I've been driven for a long time. But yeah, the term was probably when I read The Secret, about 18 years old.
So if you could go back in time and meet your 18 or your 20-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
I think I would say the same as what I said the other day, which was like understand that business is about the true purpose of business is about solving problems for people. And if you focus on that, everything else is the byproducts. But yeah, like fall in love with your customers and solving problems for them. And yeah.
Great. Have you had any major aha moment the last few years that you wanted to share?
Yeah. Last year I turned 30 and I wrote out 30 life lessons, and I decided that every year I'm going to add one key life lesson to this. So it was quite a cool thing to do. And my life lesson for last year was set your goals in stone, but your methods in stand. So I think the big life lesson for me is being like, stay flexible, is focus on the outcome, but stay flexible in how you achieve it. That for me is really important. Another one would be, is that emotions can be influenced by thinking in a way to get you into balance. So what I mean by that, let me just sort of explain this in a better way. So the real life lesson is understanding that the thing that most people are striving for when they say, I really want to, like, you ask most people, what do you really want? I just want to be happy, right? But they don't. They think they want that, but what they really want is gratitude, because happiness is an end of a spectrum, the same way that sadness is an end of a spectrum, whereas gratitude is really what we want to strive for. So that's something now that I focus on, is like, how do I live in a state of gratitude when things don't go my way? I do my utmost, and I'm human the same as everybody else. Stuff sort of hits me, but I do my utmost to live in a state of gratitude, and it's been life-changing.
Okay. Similar to that, what's a major mistake, and I'm using the word mistake, of course, in the sense that we know that a learning opportunity. So what was a major mistake over the last few years?
A major mistake was, as you know, I put on a big event, and that event was a complete financial disaster. I mean, when I eventually share the full story of what happened in that event and some of the stuff that's happened since, I think people are going to be like, wow, okay, wow. But the lesson there was, don't force stuff, which is ironic because I have a company called Make It Happen, right? So you'd think it's all about being really proactive, but it's about being conscious in your decision making, but kind of not over pushing stuff. I was forcing stuff to happen. So it was more force it happen than make it happen. And I've learned the downside of that. And then, there's been so many lessons that have come out of that, and it's definitely made me a more rounded human being, and it's taught me lessons that most people go through their whole life without ever learning, and it tested me to the level of where level of testing can't get any more testing, in so many different ways. But yeah, that was the summary of it is basically, don't overforce something to happen. If it's not happening, that's okay. And it's a much more peaceful way of living than constantly having expectations that aren't met and trying to sort of cram a square peg in a round hole.
Sure, I understand. Similar to what I just asked then, what is something that you've changed your mind about the last few years?
Oh, great question. What have I changed my mind about? I think I've changed my mind a lot about higher power.
Higher power, as in
like divine, universe, the divine, whatever. I mean, I'm not religious, but I definitely deem myself a spiritual. And I think years ago, I just believed everything was a belief system. Whereas now I do. I mean, we started off the call when you shared that it's 3 years today since you didn't unlock your potential, and you said that there are no coincidences, and I agree. And I think I've had too many occasions now where things you just can't even make it up, like how stuff's unfolding. No, I remember reading the Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and I was just like, what a load of rubbish at first. I was like, there's no way all these things can unfold in the way they do. And then now I'm like, yeah, I get it. I just get it. The stuff that's happening and the awareness I'm having about this stuff happening, it just cannot be anything other than that. So
I get that. And having known you for these years, I can tell the difference between in this particular, because you wouldn't talk about it 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Now you much more, there's a very different approach that you have in these things. So that's great. What's the worst advice that you hear being dispensed in the world?
Okay. One of the real bad advice, I've got a real thing with the Western world of medicine. I think the healthcare system is fantastic, but I just think that it's so much of it is wrong. And when I say wrong, I mean, I don't think anyone's doing anything intentionally, or at least I hope not. But I think that there are quicker, more effective ways of healing, whatever the healing is that needs to be done, for long-term illness and disease. And it's scary how we, of all, myself included, have been conditioned into a particular way of thinking. Now that and I have to caveat that, because I'm not saying that there's not a place for it, but like, so for me right now, I've got really bad hay fever, so I'm taking Beckonase, right, which is a form of aid. But the difference is that I'm working on treating the cause whilst I'm using that. Like, if someone's in massive pain, take the painkillers, right? But don't live on painkillers for the rest of your life. And we've become conditioned to treating symptoms, not causes. Like for you as a dentist, if someone's constantly got tooth problems, brush your teeth as a preventative measure and reduce the sugar intake or whatever it is that you're eating that's having the impact. Don't constantly come to the dentist every 3 months because you've got toothache. I mean, that's a very broad brush example, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, and I agree with it. I agree completely with you.
It's the whole painkiller versus vitamin things. Like, if you were to ask how many people in the last year have taken painkillers versus how many people have taken vitamins, and I'm going to do this as a test in our group to see what the difference is. And I would imagine that the majority of people have taken some form of painkiller or medicine to get them out of pain quickly than they have vitamins to prevent them getting ill in the first place. Like, Aggie, you've known me 3 years, but I can count on like one hand the amount of time I've been ill in the last 10 years, and it's because I believe this way of thinking, and I don't just constantly jump to what I call Western medication every time I get ill. I do a lot of stuff to prime my body to not get ill in the first place.
Absolutely. Western medicine, I agree with you. And it's, I didn't think we would talk about this, but it's great to treat acute conditions. So anything acute that happens in your body, there is a very good treatment for that.
Agree, yeah.
But chronic diseases, as you said, the Western medicine focuses on treating the symptoms, not the cause. And you mentioned the painkillers, and I would say consider the two medicines which are probably the most overprescribed in the world, which is the antidepressants and statins for cholesterol. Both of those diseases can be cured by changing lifestyle. And I will very broadly use the word lifestyle. So it's not a matter of a deficiency of chemicals in the brain that you need a pill to change it. But we have been conditioned that this is the solution. So I'll pop a pill and carry on doing what I'm doing.
Which again, it makes sense to people. If people say, and this is where I love challenging experts, like my doctor, my gosh, like if I ever needed to go to the doctor, I would go to him and say, this is what's wrong with me. I need this, right? And I would have all the evidence. I've researched it to death. But the thing with like, okay, there's a chemical imbalance. So you need to take something to get you back into balance. That I agree with, right? But So yes, there is a chemical imbalance. Yes, it needs to get into balance. That's what I agree with. But what I'm interested in is what's got it out of balance in the first place.
Exactly.
So you mentioned those two things, right? Yeah. So antidepressants and stuff for cholesterol. So antidepressants, head. So it's way of thinking. Cholesterol is heart. So head, heart, and gut health is the things that we talk about most of the time, right? And all of which are hugely affected by stress. So when people are highly depressed, basically when people are depressed, it's because they're comparing their or they have feelings of depression. No one has depression, right? You have glasses on, you have a t-shirt on, you could give me that. If you were depressed and I said, give me your depression, you can't give it to me. You don't have it, right? But you have feelings of depression. Now, when you have depression, it's because you're comparing a fantasy to a reality, and a lot of people do it at a subconscious level. So let's dissolve that, and then all of a sudden you notice the depression dissolve, or the feelings of depression dissolve. Heart-based stuff, again, it's like whether it's food, and yeah, obviously certain foods that we know that aren't as good for us, high refined sugars and stuff, we know this, but most people don't know this, and that's the scary thing. So they just think, right, I need something to solve it. And the truth is, it's a lot quicker, easier, and more convenient to take a pill than change lifestyles, to change this and change that. So yeah, look, I mean, a lot of people are anti big pharma because they're deluding people. I mean, look, if people are going to do it and people want it, then I understand they're serving a need to a degree, but it needs a whole refund. But I could go on about that for ages.
Yeah, that's it's a big topic on its own, really. And yeah. Let me ask one last then, quick fire. What's the most worthwhile investment you've ever made, not necessarily in money, but in terms of your time or your energy or any other resource?
Learning, definitely, but that's a broad brush. So whether it, learning and improving myself, and then coming back, and this is what obviously we talk about mistakes, and I talk about mistakes that are actually magnificent learning opportunities. And for me, the event that I did 2 years ago was the biggest lesson that I've learned. Like I say, the depths of resilience I've had to have, the creativity that I've had, the length I've had to go to make stuff happen, are life skills that are going to stay with me forever. I'm grateful for them. I don't necessarily want to go through them again. Well, I say that I would go through them again. That's a lie because of what is created. But so making my biggest mistake. And I think so many people are fearful of making mistakes because, again, they've been conditioned that things are right or wrong. It's binary, right? Rather than it's right or a lesson. There's different, and no one wants to be wrong. And especially as a kid, because you get praised for doing well. And as a kid, you're biologically programmed to want love. So if you're not getting love, then you don't feel good. And I think that's definitely been one. But just for people to fail forward, we've heard it a million times, but fail forward, identify stuff, test stuff. I mean, even with you, you started this 3 years ago tomorrow with a quote, this podcast, and then the podcast has been set up, and various other things you've done, and other people you connected with, and other things, and I've been privileged to sort of witness that part of that journey. And now these podcasts that have been listened to, I'm sure in many, many countries from people all over the world. And I've seen how many reviews you get and people love them. So you're definitely having that impact. And that wouldn't have happened if you just hadn't started, and hadn't have done something. So I encourage people to get clear on that North Star and take action, no matter how small that action is, because as well as I know of what can happen when you just post a quote on social media, what that can evolve into. And whatever your quote is, that you that's listening to this right now, whatever your quote is, whatever that next tiny micro action is, take it, because it's the start of that snowball.
That's great. Will, is there anything you really wanted to discuss about today, and we completely skipped it.
No, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I've absolutely loved it. It's
Me too.
You asked some really insightful questions, and I've absolutely enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
How can people connect with you?
So a few different ways. So where we're probably most active, or I'm most active, is the Make It Happen community Facebook group, which you can join, free Facebook group. Our website, if you're interested, make-it-happen.co.uk, and then connect me on socials. So Will Polston, which is Polston, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. They're the main ones that we're on, and I'm on, and we're pushing content out on. That's that.
That's brilliant. Fantastic.
And of course, so anyone that's listening to this are into podcasts, we've got our podcast as well. So the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast, you can have a listen to. I always forget the podcast, but
maybe you haven't embedded the identity of the podcaster yet.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's just it's getting used to saying it where people can find you, because it's like, right, normally I just direct them to socials, but of course they can find us on sort of all the podcast platforms as well.
And it's a great podcast you've had. It's extraordinary.
Thank you.
Will, I want to thank you very much for your time, for sharing your knowledge with us today. I want to wish you all the very best. And any last parting words?
No, I just want to say thank you, Aggie. I really appreciate it, and thank you to you that's listening to this. Thank you for taking the time to listen right through. It's been a pleasure, and until next time, make it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Will.
Thank you very much for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts. If you want to know more about me and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. The link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/PDM group. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.